Okay, population, they're the same species, they interact, I want you guys to hear me out here. Try not to tune me out, as I know this isn't necessarily the most exciting stuff in the world. But a population, they are interacting and they occupy a specific area. If we would have gone back to Wright Woods, which was the location we went on the field trip last year, and I feel bad for the groups that had to do this in the rain, but we were removing buckthorn. Buckthorn is an invasive tree that you'd actually look at the bottom of forest. A lot of forests around here, you cannot see through the bottom because it's got all this underbrush. Most of it is buckthorn. It's this invasive plant that takes over and it chokes out all the good plants. Okay? You can have buckthorn at Wright Woods and you can have buckthorn at Buffalo Creek. They're the same species, but they're not part of the same population. A population, they're in the same area. So you've got a population of buckthorn in Buffalo Creek, and you've got a population of buckthorn in Wright Woods. That's the definitive part of a population. Now, there are two terms here. Van Eyck decided to not stress them, and I get it, because really, we could really get into lots of terms. One thing I just want you to know, so you're at least aware of it. The difference between intra and inter. Intra means within. Inter means amongst others, in between. Okay? So, a population is an interaction within amongst, let's say, all those buckthorn. They're all interacting with each other. A community is now a series of populations. Now it's the deer, and it's the squirrels, and the birds, and the other plants, and it's all of those populations interacting with each other. That is what a community is called within an area. So at Wright Woods, now you've got squirrels that are making their nests in those trees, and you've got birds that are feeding on various berries in the area, you've got plants that are able to survive there. All of that is considered a community. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay? And I realize this is somewhat repetitive. I hope that by the repetition, though, that makes you just feel a little bit more confident with this stuff. So an ecosystem. I mean, you talk about apes. The first thing I usually think of when I think of environmental science is this whole concept of ecosystems and what they are. And I think of ecology. It's an interaction of community of organisms with their physical environment. See, the definition of an ecosystem is not just the living stuff. It's the living. It's, what's another word for living?
Biotic.
Biotic. It's the biotic aspects of that environment with abiotic. See, you knew it. You saw it right here. That's what I was going after. Biotic and abiotic and all of those complex interactions. And my goodness, not everybody's going to be passionate about this, and I get it. And really, it's not even my passion as far as the stuff that I've studied. But I do have an appreciation for the amazing complexity of the interaction of among organisms. How when one thing's gone, how much it affects everything else. See, Van Eyck's a bio guy. I mean, that's what he studied. I studied engineering and environmental stuff. But I will say, as I've learned more about the wolves, did you guys read the whole section about the wolves?
Yeah.
Okay, we used to show, and I'll tell you what, the video was awful. We used to show this video that covered it. Because a lot of environmental classes, a standard activity is to have a debate about the wolves. Because that debate has gone on for years and years. And there are very strong opinions on either side. But here's where I appreciate what I've learned from even reading that article. When the wolves were removed, and they slaughtered them all, elk populations went up. Elk chewed down the willow trees. Willow trees were gone. Populations of beavers disappeared and populations of birds disappeared. Why? Because they needed those trees to live in. Why did the beavers disappear? Because they needed those to create their homes and so forth. Suddenly, they reintroduced the wolves. And this is within, well, I wasn't born yet when they started. Well, what was the date of the reintroduction?
95.
No, so I was alive. You guys weren't alive yet. But I mean, what I'm trying to get across is, within this generation is when they did this huge reintroduction. This was huge, monumental in our country. Let's bring them back. And it was amazing, and it has been amazing to see suddenly the willow trees come back, which is one thing. That just makes sense. The elk population comes back down, willow trees go up. But then they're out there going, wait a second. Not only the willow trees back up, but now there's more trees, and the beavers are coming up. And what happens? The beavers now, they knock down the trees, and they create a wetland behind. They create a pond behind it. Well, now that you have a pond, what can you have in the pond? You can have more fish, you get more plant life. Suddenly you created a new habitat because the beavers have returned. And then up in the trees, you've got birds that have returned. And I know I'm getting like fired up, but what I want you to understand is the whole diversity of that community. And we're going to talk about biodiversity. And this is why I get fired up, is because before I started teaching this class, and I know I shouldn't say this, everybody's going to say, well, we need to save the rainforest because of the biodiversity. Before I started teaching this, I was like, who cares? Like, seriously, who cares if it's biodiverse? But what we're going to learn, and what I have come to really understand, is these little things like you bring the wolf back and suddenly there's more biodiversity. It makes a healthier ecosystem, and yet we haven't even tapped into the values of a lot of these things within ecosystems. I mean, if we want to just think about it, how does it value us personally? Well, then sure, I can tell you about all the different things that in the rainforest it discovered, which it helped us in medicines and things like that. But beyond that, globally, and just for nature itself, that biodiversity increases the interactions and the health of an ecosystem.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
Are you going to say when the beaver chews the tree down and falls on wolves?
No. That would be so sad. I like wolves.
I do too.
I want one.
There's a place up in Minnesota.
Really cute
called
until they eat your face off.
It's like
Like bears and lions. They're really cute until they get older.
You can actually have them as a pet.
Hey, for those that are interested in this, I know there are documentaries available. There are clips available that talk about it. I will say it's a very fascinating thing to actually see the footage, not just read a little clip, 2 paragraphs in an article about what the wolf has done. There's all sorts of stuff talking about it. Okay, so we got this biosphere, and as you can tell, here's just some pretty pictures I was throwing in. All of them are influenced. I mean, here you got, and I put these 3 pictures in intentionally. They're all very different. In the biosphere, which is the macro term for all of it. By the time, what are we out of here? 5:15. All right, man, that's sad. Okay, biosphere means all of it, and within that, we've got some amazing places that you can visit on this planet. Also very different. And they're all different because of the biotic and the abiotic factors that change them. What are the 2 most important abiotic factors?
Rainfall and temperature.
Rainfall and temperature. Precipitation, if you will. Okay? Those 2 things, because I'll tell you what, that's what gauges this right here. Van der Ark, because he does know all of the nuances of biology, actually told me the specifics, and you will learn this tomorrow when you do biomes. The specific rainfall amount, which is what calls something a desert. It's under, I believe, 10 milliliters of rain in a year, is what they determine to be a desert. Now, the other question is this. Are all deserts hot?
No.
Yeah. The poles are considered to be deserts. There's cold deserts, there's hot deserts. You guys remember the Hadley cell, how it comes down at the 30?
Yeah.
Well, we stress the Hadley cell because that's the main idea. But there are how many other cells?
3.
There's 3 total. Are there other areas where there's high pressure coming down and you don't have a lot of precipitation? Absolutely. They're not necessarily all hot. Okay? Abiotic factors are transforming our landscape. Now, let's talk about population. And this is like a total transition here to a separate concept. I'm going to probably finish with this and maybe another concept real quick. We just need to know